I cut ties with my abusive parents 12 years ago, but my delusional fiancé obsessed with my Pare. My name is Scarlett, and I am 34 years old. 12 years ago, I walked away from my abusive parents and never looked back. I built a new life for myself, found healing through therapy, and even fell in love with a man I thought was perfect, until he became obsessed with the idea of reuniting me with my parents. His delusion that no parents could truly harm their child led him down a dangerous path that reopened wounds I thought had long scarred over. If you have ever had someone doubt your lived experience, let me know where you are watching from, hit like and subscribe, and join me as I share how I had to call the police on my own fiancé. After cutting ties with my parents 12 years ago, I poured myself into creating a life they said I would never have. I became a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma recovery. The irony was not lost on me that I was helping others heal from experiences similar to my own. My practice focused on adult survivors of childhood abuse, and each client who walked through my door reinforced that I had made the right decision to leave my toxic family behind. 10 years of therapy had transformed me from a frightened, self-doubting young woman into someone who finally felt comfortable in her own skin. My therapist, Dr. Amara, had been with me through the worst of it. The nightmares that once plagued me nightly had become rare occurrences. The panic attacks that used to ambush me without warning had subsided. I learned to recognize my triggers and developed healthy coping mechanisms. I built a small but solid group of friends who became the family I chose. Then I met Jackson. It was at a charity fundraiser for child abuse prevention. I had been invited to speak about my work, though I never disclosed my personal connection to the cause. After my speech, a tall, dark-haired man approached me. His eyes were kind, his smile genuine, and he asked thoughtful questions about my work. "The way you talk about trauma recovery is incredible," he said. "You speak with such authenticity and hope." Jackson was an attorney who specialized in family law. He often represented children in abuse cases and was passionate about protecting the vulnerable. Our connection was immediate and profound. He asked for my number, and I surprised myself by giving it to him without hesitation. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant where we talked for hours. Jackson was everything I could want in a partner. He was caring, ambitious, and seemed to understand the importance of my work. He listened when I spoke and remembered the details. He respected my boundaries and never pushed when I deflected questions about my family. "My parents are not in the picture," was all I would say in those early days. Jackson would nod, accepting my answer without pressing further. As weeks turned into months, our relationship deepened. Jackson introduced me to his family, a loving, boisterous group who welcomed me immediately. His mother baked cookies when we visited. His father told embarrassing stories about Jackson as a child. His siblings teased him mercilessly. It was the kind of family I had always dreamed of having. Jackson supported my career ambitions, celebrated my successes, and comforted me on hard days. We moved in together after a year, creating a home filled with warmth and safety. Our future plans aligned perfectly. We both wanted children eventually. We both valued our careers but made time for each other. We dreamed of a house in the suburbs with a garden and maybe a dog. 2 years into our relationship, Jackson proposed during a weekend trip to the coast. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks as he knelt before me on the beach, ring in hand. "Scarlett, you are the most resilient, compassionate person I know," he said. "I want to build a life with you. Will you marry me?" I said yes without hesitation. The ring was perfect, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. Jackson had remembered that I once mentioned preferring colored stones to traditional diamonds. This attention to detail was so characteristic of him. Looking back, there were subtle signs I missed. Jackson occasionally made comments about the importance of family that made me uneasy. When he spoke about his childhood, he would say things like, "I was so fortunate to have such loving parents. Everyone deserves that." I would smile and nod, unwilling to contradict him or introduce the darkness of my past into our happiness. He sometimes expressed bewilderment at people who cut ties with family members. "I just cannot imagine not speaking to my parents," he would say. "Family is everything." Each time I would change the subject and he would let me. I mistook his silence for understanding, never realizing he was forming his own theories about my estranged parents. The engagement ring on my finger felt like a promise that my past was truly behind me. I had done the work. I had healed. I had found someone who loved me for who I was. I believed I had finally found peace and love with a man who would always be in my corner. How wrong I was. When wedding planning began, the questions about family became unavoidable. Who would walk me down the aisle? Would my mother help with dress shopping? Where would my family sit during the ceremony? Jackson came from what he called a traditional family. His parents had been married for 35 years. He had 2 brothers and a sister, all close in age. They celebrated every holiday together. They called each other weekly. They vacationed together in the summer. His vision of our wedding naturally included both our families coming together to celebrate. "What about your parents?" he asked one evening as we sat at our dining table surrounded by wedding magazines and sample invitations. "Should I add them to the guest list?" "No," I said simply. "They will not be there." Jackson set down his pen and studied me. "I know you said they are not in the picture, but this is our wedding. Maybe it is time to reconnect." This was the first time he had directly suggested I should contact my parents. I felt my chest tighten slightly, but kept my voice calm. "That is not going to happen, Jackson. My parents are not part of my life for very good reasons." "What reasons?" he asked. His tone was gentle, curious rather than accusatory. "You never really talk about them." I had been vague about my family throughout our relationship. Jackson knew I was estranged from my parents, but not why. I had never shared the details of my childhood with him, partly because I did not want to revisit that pain, and partly because I feared how he might view me afterward. But now, faced with his direct question and the practical matter of wedding planning, I felt cornered. I took a deep breath and gave him the sanitized version. "My parents were abusive," I said, "physically and emotionally. I left home at 18 and cut contact completely at 22 after trying and failing to have a healthy adult relationship with them. It was the right decision for me." Jackson reached across the table and took my hand. His eyes filled with sympathy. "I am so sorry you went through that. No child deserves to be treated that way." Relief washed over me at his response. But then he continued. "But people can change, right? I mean, how long has it been? 12 years? Maybe they regret how they treated you. Maybe they have been looking for a way to apologize." I withdrew my hand. "They have had plenty of opportunities to apologize. They know how to contact me if they wanted to. They never have." "Maybe they are afraid you will reject them," Jackson suggested. "Family is everything. Forgiveness can be healing for everyone involved." Something cold settled in my stomach at his words. They were almost exactly what my mother had said during our last conversation, when she was trying to manipulate me into continuing our relationship on her terms. "I have forgiven them," I said carefully. "Forgiveness does not mean allowing harmful people back into your life." Jackson looked unconvinced but nodded. "I understand. I just hate to see families torn apart. But it is your decision." We returned to our wedding planning, but something had shifted. A small seed of discord had been planted. Over the next few weeks, Jackson would occasionally make comments about family reconciliation. Each time I would firmly but politely shut down the conversation. Each time he would seem to accept my position, but I could sense his disappointment. Wedding planning continued. We secured a venue, chose a caterer, and sent save the date cards. Jackson was fully involved in every decision, proving himself to be anything but the stereotypical disinterested groom. But as the details came together, his questions about my family became more frequent. "Do you have any childhood photos we could use for the reception slideshow?" he asked one day. "No," I replied. "I did not bring any with me when I left home." "What about aunts or uncles or cousins? Anyone from your side we should invite?" "There is no one," I said firmly. "My family will be my friends, the people who have actually been there for me." Then came the conversation that turned our disagreement into a genuine conflict. We were discussing the ceremony when Jackson said, "I have been thinking, what if we at least invited your parents? They do not have to be part of the wedding party. They could just attend as guests. It would be a gesture of goodwill." I stared at him in disbelief. "Absolutely not. This is supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Having them there would ruin it." Do not you think you are being a bit dramatic? Jackson asked, his tone harder than I had ever heard it. People have complicated relationships with their parents, but cutting them out of your wedding seems extreme. Extreme, I repeated, anger rising. You have no idea what they did to me, no idea what I survived. Then tell me, he challenged, because all I know is that you have written off your entire family and you will not even consider extending an olive branch for our wedding day. I do not owe them an olive branch, I said, my voice shaking. And I do not owe you an explanation. I have told you they were abusive. That should be enough. We went to bed angry that night for the first time in our relationship. As I lay beside Jackson, a chasm of silence between us, I wondered if I had made a mistake in never fully disclosing my past to him. But another part of me felt betrayed that he was not taking my word at face value, that he needed details of my trauma to believe me. The argument about my parents was our first serious fight. Unfortunately, it would not be the last. One afternoon, I came home early from work to find Jackson intently focused on his laptop. When he noticed me, he quickly closed it, a flash of guilt crossing his face. "What are you doing?" I asked, suspicious. "Nothing important," he said, but he could not quite meet my eyes. Later that night, I checked the browser history, something I had never done before. What I found made my blood run cold. Jackson had been searching for my parents on social media, and he had found them. The next morning, I confronted him. "You looked up my parents online." Jackson did not deny it. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed me what he had discovered. "Look at them, Scarlett. They look like normal people." On his screen was a photo of my parents standing in front of their house, arms around each other, smiling. My mother's hair was grayer than I remembered. My father had lost weight. They looked like any aging suburban couple. "What exactly did you expect?" I asked, my voice tight. Horns and pitchforks, abusers do not advertise what they do behind closed doors. "I know that," Jackson said defensively. "But look at their profiles. Your mom volunteers at an animal shelter. Your dad coaches Little League. They post about charities and their church group. Are these the monsters you made them out to be?" "Made them out to be," I repeated, stunned by his choice of words. "You think I am lying?" "Not lying," Jackson backpedaled. "Maybe exaggerating, or remembering things worse than they were. Memory is tricky, Scarlett. You know that from your work." I could not believe what I was hearing. The man who had promised to love and support me was questioning the central trauma of my life based on social media profiles. "My parents were master manipulators," I explained, fighting to keep my voice steady. "They presented a perfect image to the world while terrorizing me at home. Nothing has changed except their tactics." Jackson sat beside me on the couch. "I believe something happened to you, Scarlett. I do. But people change. Is it possible that after 12 years they regret how they treated you, that they might deserve a second chance?" "No," I said firmly. "It is not possible. My father broke my arm when I was 10 because I got a B on a math test. My mother watched and then told the doctor I fell off my bike. They controlled what I ate, who I spoke to, what I wore. They read my diary and punished me for my private thoughts. When I finally escaped at 18, they stalked me, spread lies about me to anyone who would listen, and tried to sabotage my college scholarships." Jackson looked shocked at these details, but then his expression shifted to skepticism. "Why have you never told me any of this before? We have been together for 3 years. "Because it is painful to talk about," I snapped. "And because I thought I could trust you to respect my boundaries without needing to hear every horrible detail." Our arguments about my parents became more frequent and intense. Jackson began speaking to mutual friends about his concerns, seeking validation for his perspective. One friend, Tina, called me. "Jackson asked me about your parents today," she said. "He wanted to know if you had ever told me about your childhood. It was weird." I felt betrayed that Jackson was discussing my private business with others. When I confronted him, he justified his actions. "I am worried about you," he said. "I think you are holding on to anger that is hurting you. You need closure." "I have closure," I insisted. "I am happy with my life without them in it." Jackson shook his head. "If you were truly at peace with it, you would be able to talk about them without getting upset. The fact that you get so defensive proves you have unresolved issues." His words made me doubt myself. Was I overreacting? Was I still carrying wounds I thought had healed? I scheduled an extra session with my therapist, Dr. Amara. "Jackson thinks I should reconcile with my parents," I told her. "He says forgiveness would help me heal." Dr. Amara's expression was concerned. "Scarlett, we have worked together for a long time. You have done the hard work of processing your trauma and setting healthy boundaries. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself, not for the people who hurt you. And it certainly does not require reconciliation." "But what if he is right?" I asked, voicing the fear that had been growing. "What if I am still damaged by my past?" "Having boundaries is not being damaged," she said firmly. "It is being healthy. I am concerned about Jackson's insistence on this issue. Has he explained why it is so important to him that you reconnect with people who abused you?" I could not answer that question. Why was Jackson so fixated on my parents? Why could not he accept my decision and support me? At home, things continued to deteriorate. Jackson made passive-aggressive comments about forgiveness and family. He left articles about family reconciliation where I would find them. He spoke glowingly about his own parents and how he could not imagine his life without them. The stress began to affect my health. The nightmares returned. I found myself constantly on edge, jumping at sudden noises. One morning I had a panic attack in the shower, something that had not happened in years. Jackson's response was not compassion, but further evidence of his growing delusion. "See, this estrangement is making you sick. Making peace with your parents would help you finally move on." I began to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. The gaslighting was subtle but persistent. Jackson never outright called me a liar, but he constantly questioned my memories and reactions. I started doubting myself in ways I had not since the early days of therapy. Was I wrong about my parents? Had time distorted my memories? Was I being unreasonable? Dr. Amara helped anchor me to the truth. "Scarlett, I want you to remember that you did not arrive at the decision to cut contact lightly. You tried for years to establish healthy boundaries with your parents. You gave them multiple chances. Their abuse is well documented in our sessions." Her words helped, but at home, Jackson's campaign continued. Then came the moment that shattered any remaining trust between us. I came home from work early one day with a migraine. As I entered our apartment, I heard Jackson's voice from the bedroom. He was on the phone speaking in a hushed tone. "Yes, Mrs. Williams, I understand completely. No, she does not know I am calling. I just think if we could all sit down together. Yes, I agree, family should always come first." Ice filled my veins as I realized who he was speaking to. Jackson was on the phone with my mother. I pushed open the bedroom door. Jackson looked up, his face paling when he saw me. "I have to go," he said quickly into the phone. "I will call you back." "How dare you?" I whispered, trembling with rage and betrayal. "How dare you contact them behind my back?" Jackson stood, his hands raised placatingly. "Scarlett, I was just trying to help. I have been talking to your parents for a few weeks now. They miss you so much. They want to make amends." "A few weeks," I repeated, unable to process what I was hearing. "You have been talking to them for weeks without telling me. I wanted to make sure they were sincere before I brought it up," he explained, as if this made his betrayal acceptable. "And Scarlett, they are not the monsters you described. They admit they were strict parents, but they say you always had a tendency to exaggerate and dramatize things." "And you believe them?" I said. It was not a question. "I think there are two sides to every story," Jackson replied. "They showed me photos of family vacations, your childhood bedroom filled with toys. They kept every award you ever won. Does that sound like abusive parents to you?" I laughed, a hollow sound even to my own ears. "Yes, Jackson, it does. Abusers are not monsters 24/7. They can be charming, generous, and loving when it suits them. That does not erase the abuse." "They said you were a troubled teenager," Jackson continued, ignoring my response. "That you made up stories for attention. That you had behavioral issues they tried to address through discipline. And you believe that over what I have told you." Again, not a question. I already knew the answer. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. I believe you experienced things as abuse that were probably just strict parenting. I believe you misinterpreted their intentions. And I believe that 12 years is long enough to hold a grudge. A grudge, I repeated, my voice rising. Is that what you think this is? What would you call it? He challenged. They have reached out multiple times over the years, according to them. They sent cards and letters that you returned unopened. They tried to visit you at college, but you called campus security. Because they were stalking me, I shouted. Because every interaction with them left me suicidal. Because they never once acknowledged or apologized for the abuse. They say there was nothing to apologize for, Jackson said quietly. They say they gave you everything they could, that they sacrificed for you, that they were baffled when you cut them off. I felt as though I might vomit. The room seemed to spin around me. Get out, I managed to say. I need you to leave right now. Scarlett, be reasonable. I am just trying to help you heal. Get out! I screamed louder than I had ever screamed in my life. Jackson grabbed his keys and wallet. You are proving their point right now with this overreaction. Call me when you have calmed down. After he left, I sank to the floor, my whole body shaking. My parents had found a way back into my life through the one person I trusted most. And worse, they had convinced him of their innocence. I called Dr. Amara, who agreed to see me immediately. In her office, I poured out the whole story. He gave them our address, I realized with growing horror. He gave them my phone number. He has been feeding them information about my life for weeks. This is a serious breach of trust, Dr. Amara said, and a violation of your boundaries. How do you want to proceed? I do not know if our relationship can recover from this, I admitted. He does not believe me. He thinks I am lying or exaggerating about the abuse. Over the next few days, Jackson and I had several explosive arguments. He refused to see how he had betrayed me, insisting he was acting out of love. The final breaking point came when he delivered an ultimatum. I think we should postpone the wedding until you agree to at least meet with your parents, he said. I cannot in good conscience marry someone who refuses to even try to heal their family relationships. Then give me back my ring, I said, holding out my hand. Jackson stared at me in shock. You cannot mean that. You are throwing away our relationship over this. No, Jackson, you are throwing it away. You chose my abusers over me. You violated my trust. You dismissed my trauma. Those are not the actions of someone who loves me. I do love you, he insisted. That is why I cannot stand to see you cutting yourself off from people who love you too. If you really believe that, then you do not know what love is, I told him. Love respects boundaries. Love believes people when they say they have been hurt. Love does not require you to maintain relationships with abusers. Jackson's face hardened. No parents would abuse their child. No parents would harm God's gift to the world. You are so blinded by whatever happened in the past that you cannot see what you are doing to them. To us. In that moment, I saw clearly that Jackson had never truly known me. He had fallen in love with an idea of me, a broken woman he could fix by restoring her family ties. He did not want to hear the truth because it did not fit his narrative. We are done, I said firmly. I will pack my things and stay with a friend tonight. I want you out of the apartment by the end of the week. His face crumpled. Scarlett, please, I love you. We can work through this. No, we cannot. Not when you refuse to believe me about my own life. As I turned to leave, Jackson grabbed my arm. You are making a mistake. You are throwing away everything we built because you cannot let go of the past. I looked pointedly at his hand on my arm until he released me. That right there, I said quietly. That is exactly what my father used to do. I stayed with my friend Megan that night. When I returned to the apartment the next day to pack more of my things, I found Jackson still there, surrounded by photos. What are you doing? I asked. Looking at our life together, he said, his voice hollow, trying to understand where it all went wrong. I began gathering my belongings, ignoring his presence. Then he spoke again. Your parents called me last night. I froze. What? They want to meet with both of us. They think they can help us work through this misunderstanding. I turned to face him, incredulous. This is not a misunderstanding, Jackson. This is you refusing to accept my reality. I think we should meet them, he insisted. Just once. If it goes badly, I will never bring it up again. No, I said firmly. Never. And the fact that you are still suggesting this shows me I made the right decision ending our engagement. You need proof, he asked suddenly. Fine. Invite your parents here. Show me this terrible abuse firsthand. Prove to me that they are the monsters you say they are. I stared at him speechless. He was challenging me to expose myself to my abusers to prove my trauma was real. The audacity, the cruelty of it struck me like a physical blow. Get help, Jackson, I said, grabbing my bag. You are not the man I thought you were. I was halfway to the door when he called after me. They are coming here tomorrow at 2. I already invited them. This is your chance to prove everything you have claimed. I whirled around. You did what? They will be here tomorrow, he repeated. They are driving up from Albany. If you want me to believe you be here. I fled the apartment in a panic. The idea of seeing my parents again made me physically ill. I vomited in Megan's bathroom when I told her what Jackson had done. You do not have to go, she assured me. This is psychological warfare. If I do not go, he will tell everyone I lied about the abuse. I realized. He will tell our friends, his family, maybe even people at my work. My reputation, everything I have built could be damaged. That would be defamation, Megan said. You could sue him. But the damage would already be done, I said. Some people would believe him. That night I barely slept. My mind raced with terrible possibilities. What if my parents had truly convinced Jackson of their version of events? What if they managed to convince others? What if all my years of healing were undone by this betrayal? Against my better judgment, against the advice of my therapist, I decided to go to the apartment the next day. Not to reconcile with my parents, but to confront Jackson's delusion head-on. I arrived early at 1:30. Jackson was surprised to see me. You came, he said, relief evident in his voice. I knew you would do the right thing. This is not the right thing, I said coldly. This is me protecting myself from whatever narrative you and my parents have concocted. But let me be clear, after today, I never want to see or hear from any of you again. At precisely 2 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Jackson moved to answer it, but I stopped him. Let me, I said. I opened the door to find them standing there exactly as I remembered them despite the passage of time. My mother petite and perfectly groomed, wearing an expression of practiced concern. My father tall and imposing, his smile not reaching his cold eyes. Scarlett, my mother breathed. My baby girl, it has been so long. She moved to embrace me, but I stepped back. Do not touch me. My father's smile tightened. Is that any way to greet your parents after 12 years? After all the worry you have caused us? And just like that, in an instant, the facade of loving parents cracked. The subtle threat in my father's voice, the immediate guilt trip, the positioning of themselves as victims. It was all so familiar, it made my skin crawl. Jackson appeared behind me. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, thank you for coming. Please come in. My parents entered the apartment looking around curiously. Lovely place, my mother commented, though I notice a distinct lack of family photos. Another dig, subtle enough that Jackson might miss it. I did not. There are no photos because I do not consider you family, I said plainly. My father's expression darkened. After everything we did for you, the sacrifices we made, this is the thanks we get. Jackson intervened. Please, everyone, let us sit down and talk calmly. That is why we are here to work through these issues. We moved to the living room. I deliberately sat as far from my parents as possible. Jackson offered them drinks, playing the gracious host to people who had terrorized me throughout my childhood. Jackson has told us about your claims, my father said, emphasizing the word to suggest falsehood. About how you believe we mistreated you. I do not believe anything, I responded. I lived it. Children often misinterpret discipline as abuse, my mother said smoothly. Especially sensitive children like you, Scarlett. You always did have a flair for the dramatic. I saw Jackson nodding slightly in agreement, and something inside me hardened. Let me ask you something, Mom. Do you remember the time I broke my arm when I was 10? My mother's smile never faltered. Of course. You fell off your bicycle. You were always so clumsy. I did not have a bicycle, I said flatly. Dad broke my arm because I got a B on my math test. You watched him do it. Then you both took me to the emergency room and told the doctor I fell. That is ridiculous, my father snapped. I never laid a hand on you. What about the time you locked me in the closet for 16 hours because I spoke to a boy at school? I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Or when you withheld food for 3 days because I gained 2 pounds? Or when Mom read my diary and then you both punished me for my sinful thoughts? Scarlett, you are making this up right now, my mother said, her voice quivering with manufactured emotion. Why would you say such terrible things? I turned to Jackson. Are you watching this? The denial, the gaslighting? This is what I lived with for 18 years. Jackson looked uncomfortable but unconvinced. These are very serious accusations, Scarlett. Without proof. My father's facade broke completely then. He leaned forward, his face contorted with the same rage I remembered from my childhood. You ungrateful little bitch, he snarled. We gave you everything. A roof over your head, food, education. And this is how you repay us, by spreading lies. Jackson's eyes widened at the sudden change in my father's demeanor. We should have been stricter with you, my father continued, his voice rising. Maybe then you would have learned respect. Instead, you turned into this manipulative attention-seeking. That is enough, Jackson interrupted, finally seeing a glimpse of the truth. Mr. Williams, please calm down. My mother placed a restraining hand on my father's arm, her mask of concern firmly back in place. You will have to forgive my husband. Your accusations are very upsetting, Scarlett. We only ever wanted what was best for you. What was best for me? I repeated. Was it best for me when you told me I was worthless? When you said I would never amount to anything? When you sabotaged my college applications? When you told everyone I was mentally unstable after I left? We were worried about you, my mother insisted. You were making poor choices. We were trying to protect you. By telling my university I had a history of violence, I asked. By telling my first boyfriend I was a pathological liar. By showing up at my apartment unannounced and demanding I come home. A child belongs with her parents, my father said, his momentary loss of control now hidden behind a mask of paternal concern. We were desperate to help you. I laughed bitterly. Help me. You wanted to control me, just like you are trying to control this narrative right now. I stood up, unable to remain in their presence any longer. This meeting is over. I want both of you to leave. Now. My father stood as well, towering over me just as he had when I was a child. You do not give the orders here, young lady. Actually, she does, Jackson said, finally finding his spine. This is her home, and I think you should leave. My father turned his glare on Jackson. This is between us and our daughter. You have no right to interfere in family business. She is not your daughter anymore, Jackson said. She has not been for 12 years, and I am beginning to understand why. My mother began to cry perfectly timed tears that had worked on teachers, neighbors, and doctors throughout my childhood. We just wanted to reconnect with our baby. Is that so wrong? Save the performance, Mom, I said wearily. It might work on strangers, but I know all your tricks. Jackson moved to the door and opened it. Please leave now or I will call the police. My father's face contorted with rage again. You will regret this, he said to me. Both of you will. After they left, Jackson and I stood in silence for several long moments. I am sorry, he finally said. I did not understand. No, you did not. I agreed. And you did not believe me when I tried to tell you. I believed you experienced something, he said carefully. I just thought maybe you were exaggerating, misremembering, making it up, I supplied. They seemed so normal on the phone, he said weakly. So concerned about you. That is what abusers do, Jackson. They present a perfect image to the world while terrorizing their victims in private. I told you that, but you chose not to believe me. I am sorry, he repeated. Can we please talk about this? Try to work through it? I shook my head. No. You betrayed me in the worst possible way. You gave my abusers access to me after I explicitly told you I wanted no contact with them. You chose them over me. There is no coming back from that. I removed the engagement ring and placed it on the coffee table. We are done, Jackson. Completely and irrevocably done. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Jackson's initial remorse quickly turned to anger and denial. He began calling me constantly, leaving voicemails that alternated between apologies and accusations. I made one mistake, he would plead. Are you really throwing away our whole relationship over one mistake? It was not one mistake. It was a fundamental betrayal of trust, a complete disregard for my boundaries, and an unwillingness to believe me about my own life. But Jackson could not see it that way. When I blocked his number, he started showing up at my work. He would wait outside the building trying to catch me between appointments. My receptionist began escorting me to my car at the end of the day. He does not seem dangerous, she said. Just persistent. But I knew better. I had seen the same obsessive need for control in my father, the same inability to accept rejection, the same conviction that he knew better than I did what was good for me. Jackson sent emails, letters, even had flowers delivered to my office. The messages attached grew increasingly desperate. I miss you. Please talk to me. You are punishing me for trying to help you. We can still fix this. You are throwing away something beautiful because you cannot let go of the past. Our mutual friends found themselves caught in the middle. Some took his side, believing his version of events. He had told them I was unstable and trapped in victimhood. The echoes of my parents' words and his accusations made me physically ill. Others supported me unequivocally. Megan in particular became my rock during this time. He is showing his true colors now, she said after Jackson confronted me at a restaurant where we were having dinner. This is not love. This is possession. I had to restart intensive therapy. The encounter with my parents had reopened wounds I thought had long scarred over. The nightmares returned full force. I found myself checking locks repeatedly, jumping at unexpected sounds, scanning rooms for exits. A decade of healing undone in a single afternoon. Dr. Amara helped me process not only the trauma of seeing my parents again, but also the betrayal by Jackson. You trusted him with your heart, she said, and he used that trust to hurt you. It is natural to feel devastated by that. 3 weeks after our breakup, Jackson's behavior escalated dramatically. It was a Friday night. I was home alone trying to distract myself with a book when I heard pounding on my apartment door. Scarlett, I know you are in there. We need to talk. It was Jackson, and he sounded drunk. I did not respond, hoping he would go away. I left everything for you, he shouted through the door. My apartment, my friends, even my job. And you just throw me away. This was news to me. I had no idea he had left his job. The pounding continued. I have been sitting outside your building all day. I saw you come home. Just talk to me for 5 minutes, please. I texted Megan Jackson outside my door. Drunk, threatening. She responded immediately. Call 911, now. I hesitated. Despite everything, I did not want to get Jackson in trouble. Then I heard a crash as he seemed to throw himself against the door. If you do not open this door, I swear to God I will break it down. I am not leaving until you talk to me. I called the police. While I waited, Jackson's rage intensified. He began shouting accusations, each more vicious than the last. You lied about your parents just like you lied about loving me. You are crazy, just like they said, a manipulative, attention-seeking liar. I wasted 3 years on you, and this is how you repay me. Then came the sound of breaking glass. He had punched through the decorative window beside my door. I locked myself in the bathroom and called 911 again. He is breaking in, I whispered to the dispatcher. Please hurry. I heard the front door open, Jackson's footsteps in my apartment, his voice suddenly calm and eerily reasonable. Scarlett, where are you? I just want to talk, that is all. I remained silent, trembling in the bathroom. The doorknob rattled. I know you are in there, he said. Please come out. I am bleeding. I need help. It was the same manipulation tactic my mother had used countless times. Create a crisis, then demand care. Position yourself as the victim. The police are on their way, I called through the door. You need to leave Jackson. The police? he repeated, his voice hardening again. "You called the cops on me after everything I did for you." There was a crash as he kicked something over in the living room. Then another. He was destroying my things now, punishing me for rejecting him. I heard sirens outside, then authoritative voices in my apartment. The sound of a struggle. Jackson screaming that I was the one who needed help, not him. That I was unstable, delusional. A female officer eventually knocked on the bathroom door. "Ms. Williams, I am Officer Chen. It is safe to come out now." When I emerged, my apartment was in disarray. Jackson had overturned furniture, smashed photos, torn books. The officer led me to the kitchen, away from where her colleagues were restraining Jackson. "Do you want to press charges?" she asked. Through the doorway, I could see Jackson, handcuffed, blood dripping from his hand where he had broken the window. His face was contorted with the same rage I had seen on my father's face. In that moment, the parallels were undeniable. "Yes," I said firmly, "and I want a restraining order." As they led Jackson away, he called back to me. "Your parents were right about you. You destroy everyone who loves you." Officer Chen placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Is there someone who can stay with you tonight? You should not be alone." I called Megan, who arrived within 20 minutes. As she helped me clean up the destruction Jackson had left behind, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. I had done this before as a child, cleaning up after my father's rages. "You did the right thing," Megan assured me, sweeping up broken glass. "He needs help, but that is not your responsibility." The restraining order process was straightforward but emotionally draining. I had to detail Jackson's behavior, his escalating threats, the final break-in. It felt like an invasion, having to expose the intimate details of our relationship to strangers. Jackson was charged with breaking and entering, destruction of property, and violation of a protection order when he attempted to contact me from jail. He eventually accepted a plea deal that included mandatory counseling. The aftermath rippled through every aspect of my life. Some of Jackson's friends blamed me for his breakdown. Rumors circulated at work, though my colleagues were largely supportive. I found myself once again in the position of defending my reality against those who had not lived it. The parallel to my childhood was not lost on me. Once again, I was being portrayed as the villain for protecting myself from abuse. Once again, I had to fight to be believed. The months after Jackson's arrest were some of the hardest of my adult life. I felt as though I had been thrown back to square one in my healing journey. The trust I had carefully built in others was shattered. The sense of safety I had cultivated was gone. The confidence in my own perceptions was shaken. I returned to twice-weekly sessions with Dr. Amara. We had to revisit coping strategies I had not needed in years. Grounding techniques for panic attacks, mindfulness exercises for anxiety, sleep hygiene for the nightmares. "What hurts the most," I confessed during one session, "is that I truly believed Jackson was different. I thought I had finally found someone who would believe me, support me, love me as I am." "The betrayal is multi-layered," Dr. Amara observed. "He not only violated your boundaries but also forced you to relive your trauma by exposing you to your parents." "And in the end, he became just like them," I said. "Controlling, manipulative, refusing to accept my autonomy." Working through these feelings was exhausting but necessary. I had done it before, and I knew I could do it again. The difference this time was that I had resources I had not had as a young woman fresh out of my parents' home. I had professional knowledge about trauma. I had financial stability. I had a support network of friends who believed me. I found a support group for adult survivors of child abuse. Sitting in a circle with others who understood without explanation was healing in a way individual therapy could not provide. I did not have to justify my no-contact decision to them. They got it immediately. "My husband's family keeps pushing for reconciliation with my abusive mother," one woman shared. "They cannot understand why I will not just forgive her for beating me unconscious as a child. My boyfriend thinks I am exaggerating about my dad because he is so charming whenever they meet," another said. "He says I must be remembering wrong." Their stories reflected my own experience, and I found strength in our shared resilience. I began to volunteer as a peer counselor, using my personal and professional expertise to help others navigate similar situations. Through this work, I became more vocal about the reality of hidden abuse. I started speaking at community events, sharing sanitized versions of my story to educate people about the signs of abuse and the importance of believing survivors. At one such event, a young woman approached me afterward. "My boyfriend does not believe me about my parents either," she said. "He keeps pushing me to invite them to our wedding. After hearing you speak, I am reconsidering the relationship." I was careful not to tell her what to do, but I shared the questions Dr. Amara had asked me. Why is it so important to him that you maintain a relationship with people who hurt you? Whose needs is he prioritizing, yours or theirs? As for my own romantic future, I knew it would be a long time before I trusted enough to try again. I established clear boundaries around discussing my family history with new acquaintances. I was open about being estranged from my parents without feeling obligated to explain why. When I did begin dating again, nearly a year after the breakup with Jackson, I was much more deliberate in revealing my past. On the third date with a man named David, I broached the subject directly. "I am estranged from my family due to abuse," I told him. "That is a boundary I maintain for my well-being. I need any partner in my life to respect that boundary without requiring extensive justification." David nodded. "My sister cut ties with our uncle for similar reasons. I have seen firsthand how important those boundaries are." His response was refreshingly different from Jackson's. No attempts to play devil's advocate. No suggestions of reconciliation. Just simple acceptance of my reality. We dated for several months before things ended amicably due to career opportunities in different cities. But that relationship helped restore my faith that I could be understood and respected. I eventually decided to move to a new city myself, seeking a fresh start away from the memories of Jackson and the lingering fear of running into my parents who knew where I lived, thanks to him. I accepted a position at a university counseling center in Seattle, across the country from my previous life. The distance helped. So did the change of scenery, the new colleagues, the opportunity to redefine myself in a place with no history. I continued my private practice part-time, specializing more explicitly in helping survivors of family abuse. I learned to be more discerning about who I allowed into my inner circle. I watched for red flags I had missed or ignored with Jackson, particularly the subtle ways people react when you set boundaries. Do they respect them or try to negotiate? Do they accept your experiences at face value or require proof? Above all, I reclaimed the peace I had worked so hard to achieve before Jackson's betrayal. I rebuilt my sense of safety, my trust in my own perceptions, my belief that I deserved relationships that honored my boundaries. The journey was not linear. There were setbacks, days when the trauma felt as fresh as it had when I was 18. But there were also triumphs, moments when I realized how far I had come from the frightened girl who had fled her parents' home with nothing but a backpack and determination. I came to understand that healing is not a destination, but a practice. Each day I choose to honor my truth, to maintain my boundaries, to believe in my worth. Some days that choice comes easily. Others it requires everything I have. But I make it again and again. Family, I have learned, is not defined by blood, but by respect, love, and safety. The family I have created for myself, friends who have stood by me through the darkest times, colleagues who believe me, clients who trust me with their stories. This is my true family. They are the people who see me clearly and love me anyway, who respect my boundaries without requiring justification, who believe me when I speak my truth. As for forgiveness, I have found my own definition of it. Forgiveness does not mean allowing harmful people back into your life. It does not mean pretending the abuse never happened. It means releasing the expectation that your abusers will ever acknowledge the harm they caused. It means freeing yourself from the hope that they will change. It means choosing your own well-being over societal expectations of family obligation. I have forgiven my parents in the only way that matters. I have freed myself from them. I have built a life they said I never could. I have found joy despite their attempts to convince me I did not deserve it. And I have forgiven Jackson too, not for his sake, but for mine. I understand now that his inability to accept my truth had nothing to do with me and everything to do with his own limitations. His perfect family narrative was so central to his identity that he could not comprehend an experience so different from his own. That forgiveness does not mean I would ever allow him back into my life. Some bridges once burned should remain ashes. Some boundaries once violated must become walls. Some relationships once broken are better left in pieces. The greatest lesson I have learned, the one I share with all who will listen, is this: you are the authority on your own experience. No one has the right to dictate how you should feel about what happened to you. No one gets to decide what boundaries you need to be safe. And anyone who tries to override those boundaries does not deserve a place in your life, no matter how much you love them. Have you ever had someone doubt your lived experience? Have you struggled with setting boundaries with family or partners who did not respect them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and healing. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to walk away from relationships that do not honor your truth. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your reality is valid, your boundaries matter, and you deserve people in your life who believe you without question.